So last week we looked at Home Alone, which was a story about an 8-year-old boy with problems. This film is also about an 8-year-old boy with problems, just problems of a quite different scale. That's because today we are looking at Child's Play 3, released in 1991. This was also a Twitch points request. Thank you, Blade, for using your Twitch points to make this look back happen. So you know what they say, success breeds greed, especially when you're dealing with Universal Studios. Due to the success of the first two Child's Play films, Universal Studios forced Don Mancini, the creator of Child's Play, to draft a screenplay for a third film in a very short amount of time. How short, you might ask? Well, this film released just 9 months after Child's Play 2. In this one, Chucky's alive again. Shocker, I know. And he once again wants to go after Andy Barclay to put his soul into Andy's body. The thing is, this film takes place 8 years after the events of Child's Play 2, and Andy is now 16 years old and in a military school. While there, Chucky conveniently meets another 8-year-old named Ronald Tyler and decides, screw it, I'm gonna take his body instead. Now again, due to the short time constraint, they really had to rush the plot for this, and this was not originally what they had in mind for this film. Initially, there was a concept for this film involving multiple Chuckies that had to be scrapped. However, that concept was later reworked in a later installment, Cult of Chucky. Now obviously, with this film being released 9 months after the first but taking place 8 years later, Alex Vincent was not able to return as Andy Barclay. Instead, 16-year-old Andy Barclay was portrayed in this film by Justin Whalen. Also in the cast were Perry Reeves, Jeremy Silvers, Travis Fine, Dean Jacobson, and of course Brad Dourif returned once again to voice Chucky. The film had a budget of $13 million, which was the same as Child's Play 2. However, Child's Play 2 grossed almost $36 million at the box office, and this grossed only $20.5. It also received negative reviews, and not just because critics hate horror movies, but also because it wasn't very good. And now, of course, we have to get to the worst part of this, the reason this film is infamous in the United Kingdom, due to the real-life murder of a child, James Bulger. On February 12, 1993, two 10-year-old boys named Robert Thompson and John Venables abducted, tortured, and murdered a 2-year-old boy named James Bulger. So how does this film connect to that awful event? Well, some British tabloid newspapers claim the attack on Bulger was inspired by this film. It was revealed during a police investigation that Child's Play 3 was one of the films that Venable's father had rented in prior to months of the killing, but it was not established if he had ever watched it. So what was the link, you might ask? Well, apparently James Bulger's body was splashed with blue paint, and there is a scene in this movie in which one of Chucky's victims is splashed with blue paint. That's it. That's the link. The police officer who directed the investigation, Albert Kirby, also found later that John Venables was not even living with his father at the time, and was unlikely to have seen the film. Moreover, the psychiatric report confirmed the boys did not even like horror films. So, yeah, this was basically just another tabloid newspaper thing trying to blame movies and, of course, later video games for real-life things. Poor connection or not, it has obviously cast a grave shadow over this movie, which has resulted in some people thinking this movie is somewhat more sinister than it is, when in reality, it's just a bad horror movie, to be honest. Like, that's really all this movie is. It's just a crappy horror movie. But bad movie or not, we're gonna look at it right now. Child's Play 3, released in 1991. So our film begins 8 years after the events of Child's Play 2 in the same Good Guys factory where Chucky was murdered at the end of that film. The factory was since abandoned, but now it is being cleaned up and revived, including Chucky's gruesome remains. So this is just completely ridiculous, but stick with me here. So they're cleaning up the factory, right? There's cobwebs and dirt and Chucky remains everywhere, right? But they're also already starting production in the same factory on new Good Guy dolls. So there's like molten plastic being made already, and they use a crane to drag Chucky's body over the molten plastic which is running, and then Chucky's blood drips into it, and that's how Chucky gets reformed. Which, even for a movie about a killer doll, is fucking ridiculous. We then go to PlayPal headquarters, who are the makers of the Good Guy, where the CEO, Mr. Sullivan, has decided that nobody remembers Andy Barclay anymore anyway, and let's just recommission the Good Guy dolls because they'll make us money. Seriously, he gives the most uninspired, basic, haha, I love money speech I've ever heard. He's then presented with the first ever officially made a new Good Guy doll of the 90s, which I'm sure totally won't come alive and murder him in about 5 minutes. That night, he's in his high-rise apartment with the Good Guy doll on his couch, but uh-oh, it's left the box. Who could have foreseen this? Mr. Sullivan then slips on some conveniently spilled marbles before all the toys in his apartment start to come to life. He then sees 2 Good Guy dolls talking to each other sitting in chairs, which I imagine is a reference to that whole multiple Chucky's thing they had planned. Chucky then jump scares him and hits him in the head of his own golf club and then throws his own darts into him as he tries to get away. Chucky then comes up behind him and strangles Mr. Sullivan to death with a yo-yo. He then goes on Mr. Sullivan's computer to find the psychological file on Andy Barclay, which he has for some reason. The file reveals that Andy is now 16 years old and has been relocated to Kent Military School. We meet Andy, meanwhile, who arrives at said school and meets Colonel Cochran. Colonel Cochran knows about Andy's past and basically tells him to just fucking grow up. While Andy's getting his hair cut by a psycho barber named Sergeant Botnick, he also meets an 8-year-old cadet named Ronald Tyler. By the way, for most of this look back, I'm going to be calling the characters except for Andy by their last names because that's how they're referred to as in this film. Anyways, while Andy's getting his hair cut, he sees an ad on the TV for the new Good Guy dolls, which sends him into trauma, but Tyler seems to like him. Andy goes into his room where he hears something coming from the closet. Uh-oh, it's just some dude tied up in there. Turns out that dude is his roommate, Harold Aubrey Whitehurst, who is pretty cowardly and often gets bullied. The next day at orientation, Andy gets chewed out by Lieutenant Corporal Brett C. Shelton, who is doing a very bad Arlie Emery impersonation. And I don't mean that in a sense that he's a drill instructor, I mean that in a sense that they quite literally at some points lift lines from Full Metal Jacket and give them to Shelton. Andy is also impressed though by a female cadet named Kristen De Silva who mouths off to Shelton. Later on, Tyler is given a package to deliver to Andy's room, but he accidentally drops it down the stairs. He goes to retrieve it but notices that the packaging ripped and it's actually a Good Guy doll inside. He really wants one, so he takes it to the armory to open it himself. Chucky bursts out of the packaging and is furious to see Tyler. Chuck even remembers, though, that he can transfer his soul into the first person he reveals his secret to, which was Andy, and it doesn't make sense for it to be Tyler, but I guess because Chucky died, the cycle reset, which is the only explanation I can think of for this. Regardless, he's set on Tyler now. He befriends Tyler and tries to convince him to play a game, which turns out is the ritual, but before he can complete it, he is interrupted by Colonel Cochran, who confiscates the doll. Later on, during training, Andy sees Cochran taking Chucky outside, which stuns him. Chucky is then thrown into a garbage disposal, but before he can be destroyed, he screams in horror, leading the garbage man to think that there's somebody in the back of the truck. While the garbage man goes back there to look, Chucky sneaks out, goes to the front of the truck, activates the garbage truck, and crushes the garbage man to death. That night, while Andy is unpacking, he's surprised by Chucky, who was under his bed, and slices him on the leg. Chucky decides to tell Andy his evil plan. He doesn't want Andy anymore, he's gonna take over Tyler, and Andy better not try to stop him. Andy then tries to choke Chucky to death before they're interrupted by Shelton. Chucky then gets confiscated, again, this time by Shelton, and taken to Shelton's room. Andy knows he needs to get Chucky back though, so later that night he sneaks into Shelton's room to get Chucky. He's surprised from behind by Chucky again, which causes him to wake Shelton up, which obviously infuriates Shelton, and he forces Andy as well as all the other cadets to do laps outside. Meanwhile, Chucky is looking for Tyler, who wants to play hide and seek. Tyler decides to hide in Colonel Cochran's office, where Chucky follows him into. They both go into the closet, while meanwhile De Silva, as well as another cadet named Ivers, sneak in there. They're doing so because De Silva wants to look at Andy's file because she finds him cute and she wants to know more about him, which is sorta creepy, but alright. They hear noises coming from the closet, however, and they find Tyler in there with the doll. De Silva then decides to put some lipstick on Chucky, but then Colonel Cochran is coming, so they all gotta bail out of there real quick, leaving Chucky behind. Cochran sees Chucky on his floor and is confused, but throws him away in the trash. However, the trash then moves and Chucky is immediately gone. Chucky then jump scares Cochran so fucking bad that the dude has a massive heart attack and falls through a table and dies. The next day in the mess hall, Andy confronts Tyler about Chucky, telling him that he shouldn't trust Chucky because he's evil, but Tyler doesn't believe him. Regardless of this though, Andy leaves Tyler a knife just to be safe. Later on, Whitehurst is having his hair cut by Sergeant Botnick. After he leaves, Botnick looks through his cabinet and finds Chucky in there. And he decides, whatever, I'm gonna give it a haircut, but right before he can, Chucky grabs a straight razor and slits his throat. Whitehurst then comes back to get his jacket and walks in on the immediate aftermath of this. Meanwhile, everybody is outside because despite the Colonel's death, they are going to go through with their annual war games. Basically, everybody is separated into both red and blue teams, and they have to find and hunt each other and shoot each other with paintball guns. Whitehurst then stumbles out, noticeably distressed, but he refuses to talk about it. Meanwhile, in the armory, Chucky is making some adjustments to the red team's gun, that being switching out the paintball bullets for live rounds. While they're walking to their tent, Andy realizes that Whitehurst is probably distressed because he saw Chucky, but Whitehurst still refuses to talk about it. Later on at night, Andy takes a walk through the woods and De Silva follows him, and they notice a carnival out in the distance. De Silva then decides to make out with Andy while Chucky is watching them from the forest. So Andy and Tyler are on different teams. Andy is on the blue team and Tyler is on the red team, but Andy needs to find him. In order to do that, he stole Shelton's plans, which mapped out roughly where the red team is, and he's gonna sneak off to go there. He asks Whitehurst for his help, but Whitehurst is fucking traumatized, so he can't do it. Shortly after he leaves, however, Shelton realizes that the plans were stolen, and also finds out that it was Andy that did it since he's gone. The blue team go after him, while Andy has arrived at the red team camp looking for Tyler. He finds Tyler not in his tent, and Tyler's tent mate tells him that he snuck off with some dude named Charles. And sure enough, Chucky and Tyler are going for the forest, where Chucky wants to play the ritual game again, but Tyler doesn't like that game. Chucky has about had enough at this point, and he pulls a knife on Tyler, making Tyler realize that Andy was right and Chucky is evil. Luckily, he still has that knife that Andy gives him, and he uses it to stab Chucky and get away. Meanwhile, Andy is intercepted by Shelton in the blue team, but De Silva is not there as she was set out on recon. That's unfortunate because she is then ambushed and taken hostage by Chucky. Chucky then gets on De Silva's radio and instructs them to come up onto a hill with an abandoned car and to bring Tyler with them if they want De Silva to live. Chucky then also contacts the red team, who remember have live rounds, to come up to the hill as well because the blue team was spotted there. Chucky is holding De Silva hostage with a live grenade, and reluctantly, they swap De Silva for Tyler. Shelton and the blue team then come up, and Shelton realizes that Chucky was real the whole time. Before he can react further though, the red team pull up and shoot him with a live round through the heart, killing him instantly. This causes Chucky to laugh maniacally, which Tyler uses as an opportunity to get away. Meanwhile, chaos breaks out between both sides, with the red team having murdered Shelton, and also Shelton's second in command blaming Andy for this and trying to kill him. Chucky then decides to throw the grenade, and through the chaos, nobody sees this except for Whitehurst. Whitehurst then sacrifices himself by diving onto the grenade, which obviously kills him, and which is a really shitty ending for this character. Andy and De Silva then realize that both Chucky and Tyler are gone and take off after them. So remember that carnival from earlier? Yeah, Tyler, meanwhile, has found it, and he finds a security guard telling him that somebody's trying to kill him. The security guard tells Tyler he's safe now, and in an effort to calm him down, shows him this thing he found. A good guy doll. Oh shit. Meanwhile, Andy and De Silva have also arrived at the carnival, and they enter the tent to see if Tyler is in there. They don't find Tyler, but they do find a security guard dead on the floor. And before they leave the tent, De Silva takes the guy's gun. Chucky also has a gun, and he forces Tyler to bring him into a horror-themed roller coaster named Devil's Lair, where they're followed closely by Andy and De Silva. Tyler's then momentarily able to get away from Chucky and reunites with Andy once him and De Silva burst in, which results in a brief shootout between De Silva and Chucky, and De Silva gets shot in the leg. Chucky continues to chase after Tyler, and with De Silva now out of commission, Andy takes the gun and goes after them. Chucky catches Tyler again after Tyler's leg gets stuck in part of the ride. However, another part of the ride, a Grim Reaper with a big scythe, brings said scythe down and cuts off half of Chucky's face. This allows Tyler to get away again, climbing onto some sort of flying demon thing, but Chucky hangs on as well. Andy sees this going on as they're both taken to the top of a pile of skulls. However, after getting off the demon fang, it whirls around and knocks Tyler over, knocking him unconscious. Andy attempts to climb up to the skull mountain while Chucky begins to do the ritual. Just before Chucky can complete the ritual, Andy shoots him and knocks him over. He wakes Tyler up, at which point Chucky wakes up as well and tackles Andy from behind, causing Tyler to fall halfway off the structure with Andy holding onto his arm. Oh, and also right below them is a giant fan. Oh Christ. Tyler then gives Andy the knife back, which Andy uses to stab Chucky and then yeet him into the giant fan, which kills him for super reals this time, for the fucking third time. In the aftermath, De Silva's taken away in an ambulance, Andy is taken by the police for questioning, and they don't show us at all what happened to Tyler, and that's the end of the movie. So I will reiterate, this movie's legacy should not be alleged involvement in a real-life tragic murder of a young child. Its legacy should just be a shitty horror movie, because that's all it is. I want to give it a little bit of slack just because, again, fucking Universal Studios really fucked them here, man. As they proved later, the concept that they were talking about with the whole multiple Chuckies worked. Because we're not going to get to that for a bit because we've got, I think, at least 2 more films before we get to that. Maybe 3 more films. But Cult of Chucky was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty good. The concept worked. And this film could have been good if it had used that, but they got fucked, basically. They got fucked by Universal Studios, and because of that, I'm willing to give them a pass on this, because how are you supposed to make a good movie that quick, you know? I mean, especially when it's a horror movie sequel, and horror movie sequels are all already almost all bad, except Child's Play 2 was good, which makes this even more of a shame. But yeah, I mean, in under normal circumstances, I would say, oh, maybe they were lazy with this or anything, but it really wasn't that. This film sucks, but I'll give them a pass. Something I won't be giving them a pass on, though, is the movie that came out next after this. And you might be thinking, oh no, another movie came out 9 months more later, right? Well, no, the next Chucky movie did not come out until 1998, 7 years later. It was called Bride of Chucky. It is very controversial. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't. I don't, personally, so we'll talk about that soon. However, I will say that film is at least better than this one. This might be the worst film in the franchise. Well, actually, no, I just remembered Seed of Chucky, which is after Bride of Chucky. That actually might be the worst film in the franchise. Would I recommend you watch this? I mean, I guess there is some connection to Bride of Chucky, but also not really that much. I think you could skip this film and be fine. Really, it's not at all a necessity in the franchise even to understand that much. So, no, I can't really recommend this even to fans of the series, to be honest. So obviously last week to this week, we went from a film about an 8-year-old boy to another film about an 8-year-old boy. And this was a terrible movie. So you might be thinking, are we going from this week, a terrible movie, to next week, another terrible movie? Well, actually, yes. That's because next week we're going to look at Neil Breen's magnum opus, Fateful Findings, which, oh god, that's all I have to say, is oh god. But for this week, I hope you guys enjoyed my look back at Child's Play 3. What did you think of the movie? Did you agree with me that it was bad? Did you, for some reason, like it? I'd really like to hear from you if you liked it. I'd like to hear what you liked about it, because there isn't much, in my opinion, to be honest, but I'd love to hear it. But thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave it a like. If you didn't like it, don't. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they're all in the video description, as well as names on my Patrons. Thank you to all my Patrons for supporting me and my channels. I appreciate you guys. And thank you again to Blade for using your points on this. With all that being said, though, my name is Noah Taff. This has been my look back at Child's Play 3, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.